How can you take a book and make it into a signature talk? Well, in today's episode, we are going to discuss exactly how to do that. What's up, guys? This is Philip Sessions, your public speaking and communication coach, here today to talk to you about how to take this book that maybe you've written, maybe you haven't written it yet, and how you can create that into a signature talk. Before we get into that, if you don't know, books are a powerful source for you to be able to get on stage, to be able to speak. It's a way for you to be able to articulate your thoughts into words, into something that's written. And the example I want to use today, I am by no means an affiliate or anything, at least not yet, of this person, but this is a great book, and I just want to use this as an example. And this is purely an example. This is not me putting words in this person's mouth or anything like that. So hopefully that takes all the disclaimers out of this, that I by no means am trying to copyright or anything like that. I just want to use this as an example. And I've actually shared this book before, The Exceptional Presenter. It is a great book. Definitely one I would recommend you looking at. A lot of great details on presentation skills in general. I want to go, and you'll see throughout any book, really, but the book will have chapter titles, and your book is probably going to have the same thing. And maybe you have some subheadings in there, maybe you don't. And I want to take this first chapter, which is actually chapter 11 within this book, using nervous energy to create positive results. And so you take a chapter essentially, and so this is the very first thing within a book. You can decide either try and do the whole book, which that's probably gonna be a lot, unless if you wrote a very short book. So this book, I think, is about 180, almost 190 pages in totality. So most likely you're not going to speak on your whole book, especially if it's anything over 20 pages. But even at 20 pages, you're probably going to have to summarize a lot of what it is that you talk about in your book. So what I would strongly suggest is taking one chapter to start when you want to create a signature talk from your book. And so in this case, I'm going to take chapter 11, using nervous energy to create positive results. And the cool thing is they have some subtitles, and I'll read those really quickly for you, but there's actually 5 subtitles. The first one, you're not different. Most people get nervous. The second is the mental game of presenting. Third, focus the spotlight on your message and your audience. Number 4, convert nervous energy to positive energy. And then number 5, techniques for controlling the fear. And so if we skip over to the chapter itself, and I'm going to try and show this. So if you're not watching the video, go check out the video. But as you can see here, the chapter kind of starts out there, and I've got my lovely sticky note there to help me. But then you can see the highlighted sections where he's really going in here and highlighting. And the great thing is, if this is your book, you probably know a lot of this information, but maybe you don't remember it all, and you can go back and look at this. And the cool thing with this chapter, it's not every chapter that he has 5 subpoints to it, but essentially your whole speech could be around what the chapter is. In the case of this chapter, is using nervous energy to create positive results. And then from there, you can pick out all 5 of these. You can pick out 1 or 2, whatever you want. If you have subpoints within a chapter of your book, then you take those subpoints, and those are points that you're going to make throughout your speech to support your overall speech, which in this case is using nervous energy to create positive results. And so he has, you're not different. Most people get nervous. And that's a perfect way to start this out. And so I'm going to kind of give compliments to the author on this as we go throughout this, but perfect way to start out. And you don't have to keep it in the same order if you don't want to. But with this one, I actually would, because most people are going to think, wait, being nervous is a way to have positive results? What? So you're not different. Most people get nervous. We all get nervous from time to time, and you can go into some detail about that. Maybe it's a lot of what you've already written down in your book. Maybe it's not, but you pick up the subpoints, and you decide what order you want them in that's going to make the most sense to help flow. Since you wrote the book, most likely that's going to be the flow, and it's going to be great. It's going to work exactly how you want it to. But perhaps you want to rearrange that order, but you need to think about the audience as well as you're doing this. So you have this idea of what it is that you want to talk about. You have this idea that you're going to talk about something within your book. Analyze your audience. Who is your audience? And then that's where I would pick that chapter. But maybe you picked the chapter already. Figure out who your audience is, and you have those subpoints because, yeah, you wrote that book already, and you have the subpoints from the book. But then you need to add more to that because a book, yes, you're going to have some stories. You're going to have a lot of information in there, but those stories were for more of a broad audience, perhaps, or maybe you had a particular audience in mind when you wrote that book, and the audience you're speaking to now is not the same audience that that book was written for, and that's fine. But that's where we need to go and create stories around those subpoints that relates with that audience. So knowing your audience is what you're going to need to know, so then you can create some stories within those subpoints. But that is literally what I would do in order to take my book and create a speech out of it. Is I would, if I have a book, I would take my book and find one chapter that I want to talk on. First, I would probably go and figure out what it is that the event host wants me to talk about in a general sense, what their idea is that they want me to talk on. If they don't, then I need to learn more about that audience. Who is that audience? What is the goal that the event has and the audience has to come out from that event? And then find a chapter within my book that would be most relatable with that audience. And if I already have subpoints or subsections within the chapter, then great. Those are my points. Those are my stories, the things that I'm going to share to be able to give my overall message for my speech. But if I don't, then I can figure out some subpoints along the way. But I can use a lot of the details that I've already written out in my book in order to have that as the educational piece, but then tie in stories that relate with the audience that I'm speaking to now. And that's the key thing. Yes, you have a book, you've written a book, you've got all this information in there, but you still need to make sure that those stories relate with that audience, so that way that message can truly be for them. As I say all the time, facts tell and stories sell. You can tell the facts all day long. You can let people know the information all day long. But until you have a story that connects with that audience and that message, it's going to be hard for them to be able to transfer that information that you've given them into actionable steps. So make sure that you have stories that relate with that audience and the message from the book that you have. And that's how I would take a book or a portion of my book and create it into a signature talk or speech. And if you have any questions, you want to get help with that, let me know. I'm happy to help out. Just find me on social media and shoot me a DM saying you need help getting your speech ready from your book.